All right. It looks like we're live. I don't know if anybody's going to be watching today, but if you are, fantastic. Thanks for coming. This one is going to be interesting, and I hope some Ukrainians either come in here live or watch the video, because I have some interesting facts that I think even most Ukrainians don't know about in my personal experience. I apologize for my late stream tonight. I hope it didn't ruin your day. But I had, well, I teach English here, and my days are very, very busy. And I teach a class for Ukrainian high school students based on Dungeons and Dragons. If you don't know what that is, it's a game that I can show you. You really should know what Dungeons and Dragons is. It's pretty. It's been around for, my God, like 40. It's almost as old as me. I think it is as old as me. Like 47 years it's been around. You play it with dice. It's a role-playing game. It's a lot of fun, and I use it to teach English. It's pretty challenging for people if English is not your first language. You can play Dungeons and Dragons in your native language, in Ukrainian or whatever, but it's a great way for students to learn to learn a new language, because they have to. Well, they have character sheets. Maybe I could even show some here. So this is a, let's see if I can find one. Here we go. So if you've never seen a Dungeons and Dragons character sheet, here's what it looks like. Well, when it decides to load. Or that. There we go. Yeah, it looks like that. There's a lot of words. There's a lot of things to learn. And it's challenging for students. And teenagers aren't normally interested in anything, much less learning new vocabulary words. This is a great way to motivate students. So, and I've done it with adults too. And it was very popular before the war. Well, my classes were popular. So, that's why I was late. The class ran a little bit late. The students were having such a great time and learning so much. Today we have a couple of topics, and I think the first one maybe that I want to talk about is just because today is, I guess it's the second day of the Maidan revolution, or the Revolution of Dignity. So this was the big protests that happened in Ukraine in 2014. It's kind of what started this whole thing that eventually led to the war, because Russia didn't like this. Putin specifically didn't like a bunch of Ukrainians standing up for themselves. And the debate that was going on within Ukraine at that time was, should Ukraine become essentially part of Russia the way Belarus is, or do they want to become part of the European Union, or move into Europe in some way? And as should be obvious from these pictures, the people decided, we want to go into the European Union sphere. Russia had a puppet, which was Yanukovych. He was a puppet president, totally controlled by Russia. The people came out and protested against him because at first he said, "Hey, I'm gonna sign a paper starting the process of Ukraine joining the EU or becoming more closely associated with the EU." Putin stepped in and said, "Wait, no, we can't do that." And people didn't like that. They came out and started protesting. It was not a coup. It was not funded by the CIA at all. Where this gets important for me is I was VP of sales for an IT company in 2013 and 2014 in Arizona. And we hired Ukrainians to work remotely to do some of the work that our regular staff didn't have time to do. We were just, growing too fast. And the Ukrainians could often get it done better, faster, cheaper. And, we had been working with the Ukrainians for, I don't know, maybe 9 months, not quite a year. And all of a sudden, this Maidan protest thing started happening. And we were like, oh my God, what's going on? It sounds crazy there. Well, it turns out that some of our Ukrainian employees were actually at the protest. They said, "Oh, it's fine. It's great. It's perfectly fine." And even when the protest went a little bit crazy, the police started cracking down. And I don't know if I have any pictures of it, but hey, Aaron, good to see you, man. Sorry to make you wait. Just talking about Maidan here. So the protest started going pretty crazy. And we were asking our employees, our Ukrainian contractors, like, are you going to be okay? And they were like, everything's fine. We actually gave them a raise because we felt so bad about, what was going on. I was just so impressed by that I think that's the point where I decided, hey, I think I want to visit Ukraine. I think I want to go there. I've always wanted to move to Europe all of my adult life. I was like, yeah, that's what I wanted to do with my life. And when I finally, met some Ukrainians, even remotely, just in conference calls, I was just really so impressed. I was involved in protests against the American government. I protested against the Iraq War. Not because I'm, against war per se, but that was a stupid war, and it was based on lies, and I knew it, and I couldn't understand how everybody was, taken in by the George Bush propaganda, We protested the shit out of that. The largest protests America has ever seen in 2003. In American history, the largest protests. And it did nothing. Absolutely jack shit, nothing. I was deeply involved with the Occupy Wall Street protests in 2011, protesting against corruption of our financial system and the corruption of our banking system in the United States. And, those protests came to nothing, largely because they were heavily infiltrated by by our own government and kind of turned inside out and turned against itself. So when I saw these Maidan protests actually having an actual effect, it really restored my belief in democracy in a lot of ways, and it restored my belief that at least somewhere in the world, the will of the people and democracy would and could prevail. And then when the shooting happened, and then Yanukovych fled the country, this is where people say, "Oh, it was a coup." No, Yanukovych, the president, fled the country because he knew what he had done was illegal. By ordering the killing of innocent civilians, he knew that he was going to be prosecuted under the law. And he fled, he left Ukraine, fled to Russia, and he was just gone. The country had no president. It was a dereliction of duty. It was literally, he gave up his presidency. It's not, he wasn't ousted, you know. Nobody was gonna kill him. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right, Aaron. It's I do feel like it's a chance, to make a difference for the things we believe in the world. And maybe the United States can teach some things maybe Ukraine can teach some things to the United States about freedom and democracy, because I think we need to learn or remember some of those things, you know? I think that in the United States, the things that we're fighting on between liberals and conservatives are just such like petty minor issues, and it's all just drummed up by propaganda. It's all drummed up by media owned by rich people, oligarchies and monopolies that want to keep the lower classes divided and fighting against each other and fighting against their own interest. It's in their interest to do so. It's not necessarily even a conspiracy. It's happened time and again under the Roman Empire. And, oh God, now I'm thinking of that TikTok meme. We're going to talk about the Roman Empire today. We'll get to that. So anyway, this is thinking about Maidan. This is the reason I came to Ukraine, because of this, and I wanted to see this amazing land and these amazing people that had done something that millions of Americans could not do. Denise, shalom, good to see you. I'm so glad there's actually some people here. That's super cool. So, yeah. So that's Maidan was ultimately the reason I came to Ukraine, and I hope that while I'm here, I can make some kind of a difference. The other topic that I want to discuss today, I have an interest in history, and I've always been interested in the history of Ukraine since I was about 18 years old. But I didn't know that I was interested in the history of Ukraine, because American or Western history books don't, when we're talking about like ancient history here, don't refer to Ukraine. When they talk about things happening historically in this part of the world, they'll say something like the Pontic Steppe. Okay, so let's just do a Google search for Pontic Steppe. What is the Pontic Steppe? Well, okay, here we go. Let's look at this picture. That's the Pontic Steppe. Basically, it's mostly Ukraine. And when we say the Pontic Steppe, like, the Pontus is this area of around southern Ukraine, Yeah, everything was just about Russia. Exactly. Even in the history books, when they refer to something happening in Ukraine in ancient history, it would be, they would say something like, oh, in the area north of the Black Sea. Well, there's only one area that's north of the Black Sea, okay? And it's called Ukraine. It has a name. And I didn't know about that until I moved here. And I went back and I realized all this history that I'd been studying for years and years and years. My particular interest is in the history of the Goths. The Gothic people who we now know, if you look at this map, came from Sweden. So this whole part of southern Sweden, even to this day, is called Östergötland, or Östergötland, as they pronounce it, and Västergötland. West Gothland and East Gothland. And I don't know if you guys know anything about the Goths, and I'm not talking about these kind of Goths, like we could do a okay. Yeah, not like these kind of Goths here. Although I like those Goths too. I'm also interested in that kind of a Goth. No, I mean the historical Goths, the ones that conquered the Roman Empire. So there were two kinds of Goths. There were Ostrogoths and Visigoths. Visi probably means west. Oster probably means east. And what they did was they came around the year 1, okay, like 1 AD. They started traveling down these rivers a little bit like the Vikings did. They started traveling down these rivers, down the Vistula, which is in Poland, and then over down to the Dnipro and the Dniester and the Bug rivers, which are in Ukraine. And because they wanted to have trade with the Roman Empire, they traded in amber, they traded in furs, all kinds of things like that. Very much in the same way that the Vikings did. And in fact, this kind of trade had been going on, literally going all the way back to the Bronze Age. There is Scandinavian amber that was found in the hilt of a dagger of Egyptian pharaohs from 1800 BC or 1400 BC. So, this kind of trade had been going on for a long time. The Slavic people were obviously here. They were in the majority here. But they were mostly like farmers. And specifically, when we talk about the Slavic people, you can bring up this map. You look at this area here that's in yellow. That is kind of like the original homeland of the Slavic people, supposedly. And according to, in the Roman histories, they were referred to as the Antes. There was the Antes, the Sclaveni, who were in kind of in the southwest, which were from where we get the word Slavs, and then the Veneti, who became the Vandals, what we now call the Vandals. But the Goths kind of pushed their way down. They actually fought with the Vandals and pushed their way down. Let's see if we can get this. Pushed their way down through what's now Poland, along the Vistula and over to the Pripyat into this area. And this culture right here was called the wheelbark culture. And this was very directly, distinctly linked in terms of artifacts, in terms of what their stuff looked like. It looks very much like the Gothic stuff that was coming out of Sweden. And I have been to many museums here in Ukraine, and you can see that. I will actually bring it up here on my screen. This is an example of Gothic jewelry, okay, and from about the 4th century in Ukraine. And you can see it's got a very distinct look. It kind of looks Viking. If you know anything about Viking stuff, it's very big and clunky, and it's a lot of silver. They used a lot of silver, not so much gold, mostly silver. And then this is something, I don't know exactly what it was, but this is something that was made by, and this is from the Kiev History Museum. This is a Slavic piece from the same time period, roughly. Stylistically speaking, they are different. I know that they're obviously different things completely, but again, here's an example of a Slavic artifact. They worked more with bronze. They just had different styles. This has a Scythian style to it. So pretty interesting stuff. Basically, this how do I say, this wheelbark culture here, which we now know were the Goths from southern Sweden, over the course of about 200 years, kind of pushed their way down along the river down into Ukraine and became what we call the Chernyakov culture, or Santa de Mures culture as well. Santana de Mures culture. And so here we have a nice little map. So this orange area here was the Chernyakov, what we call the Chernyakov culture. This was the Gothic kingdom that occupied, northern Romania, western Ukraine. Eastern Ukraine was, the what would now be considered eastern and southeastern Ukraine was Scythian, but there were Goths all over there too. This is the kingdom that was, and I'll give you this map right here. I believe this is in Ukrainian. This is the approximate borders of the Gothic kingdom in Ukraine when the Huns. Does anybody, if you've heard of Attila the Hun, this is the kingdom that Attila the Hun. Give you a visual reference here. The Hun. Nobody knows what he really looked like, although it's said that he was ugly as the devil or something like that. He might have been Mongol. There's actually some evidence that he might have been Yanasian, which is a culture and language and genetic history closely related to the Navajo tribes in Arizona. Pretty interesting. Like they have almost the same language. Anyway, so Attila the Hun came from the eastern, like history repeats itself, Attila the Hun came from the east with his sort of tribal, kind of proto-Mongol type warriors, and just swept across this Gothic kingdom. And they fought the Goths for about 5 or 6 years under their last king, Ermaneric, who is a famous king in Germaneric. No, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. One reason why I'm bringing this up, Aaron, is a lot of Ukrainians think that their history starts with the Kievan Rus in, the 8 or 900s, with Vladimir or Valdemar and Olga of Kiev and Sviatoslav. But Ukraine has a much older history. This area, this part of the world, Ukraine is a fairly new word, historically speaking. I don't know exactly how old it is, but it's not more than 1,000 years old, I think. Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. I'll check it out for sure. A History of Ukraine, a short course. Very cool. Alexander Pali. Very cool. I will definitely check that out. Yeah. It's funny how a lot of Ukrainians don't even know. I mean, they read what they read in their history book in their classroom, and they didn't like their history class very much, so they just said, "Oh, it's Kievan Rus," and that's the end of it. But no, the Slavic people, the people who would later become the Ukrainians, they were all here. They were all, well, you'll forgive me, Aaron, I'm not citing my sources very well today either. You can look at this all on Wikipedia and the sources are there. But I've been to the museums and I've been studying this for, quite a long time. The book that I read about this was Wolfrig, oh my gosh, what's his name? The History of the Goths. Okay, come on. Wolfram. Yeah, this guy. This book. Yeah, look at that. I cited a source. History of the Goths. So this is a 20th century book. It's really good. It's a big, thick book. Really long read. I first read it when I was 18 years old, and I was like, yeah, Herwig Wolfram. Really well written, I think. It's a great book. The problem is, again, throughout the whole book, he's talking about things, well, for at least the first like half or maybe the first third of the book, the early history of the Goths, he's talking about things that are happening in Ukraine. And I don't remember seeing the word Ukraine written even one time, in this whole amazing book. So, yeah. So anyway, let's go back, take a step back to our to this here. This is what I was trying to show you guys. So yeah, basically the Huns stepped in and they divided the people, and some of the Goths turned over to to fight for the Huns. The ones who didn't want to do that, who refused to do that, they went west and south and moved into the Roman Empire. Well, but here's the thing. It wasn't just Goths. In fact, in the studies that I've read, sorry for not citing my source, the Gothic culture was never more than about 20% of the population in what we now call Ukraine. Oh, and by the way, according to ancient sources, particularly, oh my gosh, not Wolfilas. Hang on, Gothic. Oh, if I look up Gothic author, okay, the earliest name that we have for if I look up Gothic author, I'm gonna come across like Lord Byron or something. I can't do that. The earliest name that we have recorded for this area is Oyum. O-U-I-M. Oyum, which probably maybe means, yeah, they did. Well, they had a lot of trade, and it's possible, we're not sure, but there is a certain theory that their word for Ukraine may have been Hyperborea, which means the far north. But they may have been referring to a different place as well. They may have been referring to like Scandinavia, because there was trade coming, again, in the ancient Greek times, there was trade coming down from Scandinavia down to, but yeah, we know that, I mean, there were Greek settlements all along the north coast of the Black Sea. That's why we have Mariupol, and that's why we have Kherson, all these cities and places. And there still is to this day a large Greek population in Ukraine. The thing is, in Oyum, in this area, the Gothic population, even though they were the quote-unquote rulers, they were never more than about 20% of the population. And when the Huns came, the people migrated in mass, and it didn't matter if you were Goth or Sarmatian or Slavic. The Huns burned everything because they wanted more land for their horses and for their cattle. They didn't give a crap about people, unless those people were going to fight for them. So, what we now call the Goths, and Wolfram writes about this in his book, and it's very well cited. The Romans didn't really know what to call the Goths, or this mix of people that were coming from Oyum or Ukraine. Sometimes in the same record, like Procopius or whatever, the same person would be referred to as a Goth, a Scythian, or a Tauri. And the Tauri were the very ancient people who inhabited Crimea. That's the oldest word for of course there's a startup called Tauri. Yeah. Okay. They keep coming. Yeah. So the Tauri were ancient people, probably descended all the way down from the Mesolithic. So the first inhabitants of the Crimean Peninsula. That's basically it. So it was this huge mix of people being pushed west and south by the Huns, and the Goths were, again, probably only about 20% of them. Well, we know, or I hope some of you know, what the Goths then did. So this shows the migrations. This is called the migrations period. And this basically shows over the course of a couple hundred years, really about 100 years, the Huns pushed everybody west. All of these tribes, the Vandals moved west. They were Slavic, kind of Germanic, culturally, genetically Slavic, possibly. That's the current theory. The Huns basically pushed everybody west and south, and the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths, they crossed the Danube River in 376, and they they came as refugees to the Roman Empire. And the Romans didn't treat them very well. They were supposed to be getting humanitarian aid from the Romans, and they were, ultimately they were going to help defend Rome against the Huns. And the Roman soldiers were taking the humanitarian aid themselves and feeding the Goths dog meat, and they were starving. Eventually, they had a riot because they thought the Romans had killed their leaders. They had a riot and basically went rampaging all over. Here we go. I can look this up. Gothic Wars. They went rampaging around the Balkan Peninsula. Here. Basically all over this part of what's now, Romania and then Bulgaria, and pretty much occupied a big chunk of the Roman Empire for several. Well, this shows the Gothic invasions of 251. They did that too. All right, but anyway, so finally, after a couple years of this nonsense, the Roman Emperor Valens, finally took all of his legions, bunch of legions, came to to the Balkans, to what's now Bulgaria. Yeah, Bulgaria. Fought the Goths, lost. The legions were completely wiped out, and the Goths even killed the Roman emperor. It's a very famous battle, and it led to the fall of the Roman Empire. After this, that's when all of these migrations happened. Rome basically just failed to defend itself for the next, at least the next 100 years. Rome got sacked by the Goths in 406, or was it 410? So the Visigoths sacked Rome. The Visigoths eventually moved to Spain and became the ruling, all the Spanish kings and queens of Spain are descended from Ukrainians. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. I have a lot of Ukrainian friends and Ukrainian students who are now in Spain, and it seems like every other Ukrainian I meet, that's like their dream, is to freaking go to Spain because it's warm and there's they're like, oh, I want to go to the warm beaches. And I really think that the Ukrainians at the 1500 years ago had the exact same purpose. I think that's what they were. They just wanted to go to the beach. That's all. They just wanted to get somewhere warm and go see go see Athens, go on a little tour. So yeah, now you know. This. I don't know. I'm very interested to see if this Alexander Pali's book tells this particular story. If it's strictly focused on Ukraine, it might not. A lot of people don't make that connection because, historically, the Ukrainian contribution to this has been sort of cut out of history, as I said before. But I think it's really important. In fact, a remnant of the Goths remained in... Let's see if I can find it. A remnant of the Goths remained in... no, I'm not looking for Hinduism here. Let's look up this. Goths in Crimea. So a remnant of the Gothic culture and the Gothic language and the Gothic people, here we go, this is what I'm looking for, remained in Ukraine and, in fact, moved to, Crimea. Arguably, we don't know exactly how, but arguably they were pushed south by the Huns and occupied... long before the Tatars came to Crimea, it was Greek and Gothic, and it was actually called, the name of Crimea, first it was the Taurus, where we get the Taurus Mountains in Crimea, and then it was called Gothia, or Gotia. And in fact, according to some accounts, the Gothic language... And let's see if I can find... The Gothic language survived in Crimea. Yeah, here we go. Until the 16th century. Until the 16th century. And in, by some cases, the 17th century. They were still... Some people in Crimea were still speaking Gothic. My hope is... I really want to... When this war is finished... This is my secret plan. After the war, I will continue this YouTube channel or create a new one, and I'm going to have the Ukrainian version of Time Team. If you don't know what Time Team is, you really should. Go on YouTube, check it out. It was on the BBC. It was on the BBC for 20 years. Basically, it's a show all about archaeology in England. It was centered on England. I'm not sure if I can show this without getting a copyright mark, but definitely go and check it out. Basically, some grandma babushka calls up these guys and said, "Oh, I think I found an artifact in my garden," and they show up and dig up her whole garden and. Sometimes they find stuff, sometimes they don't. But it's awesome and fun every time. And this is what I want to do. I want to get together a bunch of crazy Ukrainian archaeologists, some who speak English, some who don't. I mean, half the people in Time Team, they say they're speaking English, but it's questionable. The summer... the summer of 2021, so the summer before the war, I got to spend a week on an island in the middle of the Dnipro, down here, very close to where there is the front line now. Let's see if I can bring it up. On this island right here, it's called Hortitsia Island, and I got to spend a week. I think it was like right here. I'm not exactly certain. I'll have to look. Anyway, on an archaeological dig. It's okay. It's in another place, but on this island, on an archaeological dig, digging up all kinds of cool historical artifacts of the Yamnaya period with the early pre-Indo-European culture. this zone right here, well, we'll talk about that another time. I would love to do this time team here in Ukraine. It'll be like archaeology with landmines. And the cool thing about this show, or maybe not so cool if you're an archaeologist, is every show they only have 3 days to dig. Probably because all these archaeologists have day jobs and they can't, they only have weekends to work to do the show. That's how the BBC is. They don't pay people. They still have to keep a regular job. Yeah. So that's what I hope to do. I want to thank everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed this. I'd like to ask you, I want to talk obviously about my, the YouTube shop, not YouTube shop. Yeah, YouTube shop, YouTube store. Thank you, Aaron. And I want to just bring up this Shopify that is connected to my YouTube through the YouTube store. Here you can go and purchase things directly that go directly to soldiers in the Legion. And if you're thinking about Black Friday and you want to buy a gift for someone and you don't know what to buy them, but you know they support Ukraine, or if you know they don't support Ukraine, that's another good one. You can always go here. Get one of these. This is the Legion of Angels gift card. This is a special Shopify thing. They'll physically mail a card with this logo, an actual gift card, to the person that you choose. You just click here, I want to send this as a gift. Type that in. And you can put, the minimum amount is $10 that you can put on the card, all the way up to, I don't know, maybe I should change that. $9,999. It'd be kind of funny if don't do this. If you know someone who supports Russia and then send them this gift card, that would be a funny joke. A waste of money, I'm sorry, but it would still be funny. So thank you everyone for your time. The thing I would like to tell you besides that is I don't really care if you like this. I care if you like it. I mean, actually clicking like. I don't think that's really even important on YouTube anymore. The most important thing you can do for me and to help Ukraine is to share my YouTube channel. Share if you find a video on my YouTube channel that you think is interesting and worth sharing, or you know somebody who would be interested, or a short even. Share that with your friends. Share it to your social media. My YouTube shorts are more focused on just showing kind of the general just things, culture in Ukraine. It's not yet focused on the war so much, but it's also mostly not me talking. Share it with people. It's the most important thing. Post it if you want to post it to Reddit or whatever your Facebook group. That's the most important thing you can do for me. So thank you very much, and the algorithms. Yeah, well, I'm going to work on that. I'm slow, but I'm slowly working on Twitter and TikTok, and pretty soon I'll have these things. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Aaron. Thank you all for your time. And Slava Ukraine. Do побачення.